Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and welcome to another ENFP Mail interview. Today I get to interview Nathan. So Nathan, welcome, man.
Hey, thank you very much.
So Nathan, can you tell us your full type, please?
Yeah, so I am an INTP jumper. So I am TI-SI, sleep, blast, play, consume, and I'm audio. So I'm masculine, feminine.
All right, and then what did you think and how did you feel when you got the results back?
Yeah, it was very calming and very peaceful, which is kind of weird too, but I'll explain it. When I first got into typing years and years ago, like many people, I got INTJ, and my friends who actually introduced me to typing typed me as an INTJ, which was fine. I that was fine. And as I started looking into it more and more, I started realizing, at least with just Myers-Briggs, to me, it seemed like it was a lot of blind leading the blind online. And so after about a year or two of really looking into it hard, I just kind of lost interest. As I started finding videos of OPS and Dave and Shan and whatnot, I started realizing, hey, there's something more to this that might be beneficial. And of course, at the time, I still thought I was an INTJ. But one thing that I was catching in myself, I was starting to see that demon FE. I wasn't realizing it, that that was the demon FE, that was, that was my swing. But it made me start questioning, hey, maybe I'm not an INTJ like I thought. And so I was talking to Shannon, and she explained, she's like, you're a jumper. And the thing she told me, which then started making a lot of sense, she said, you're going to look like an INTP, but you're also going to look like an ISTP, but you're also going to look like an INTJ, but you're also going to look like an ISTJ. And so I was like, oh, okay. And that's kind of the nutshell, right? Couple that with the fact that one of the things that got me interested in OPS to begin with was the fact that it's more about self-improvement. Typing is a huge part of that, and understanding where the pieces of the puzzle kind of fit together. But if you're doing it just for fun, you're kind of missing the mark. And so when I finally got my type, and the two big things, realizing that, yeah, I am demon FE, like that's my swing, and then including demon consume, that's my even bigger swing in some instances. It was like, I feel like I can finally move forward, and this personality thing's starting to make sense again. So yeah, it was really calming, really reassuring, which is kind of weird, but it felt good until a couple months later when I started realizing the big dope that I am, and just realizing that, oh man, I really do those weird things that INTP jumpers do, or just INTPs in general. So yeah.
Well, the thing about you that would have the biggest difference between an INTJ and INTP is the decider problems, right? Because like
Sure.
INTJs, they don't have problems with, I mean, their people problem is not the biggest problem in the world. It's
Right.
no balance with that, the middle stuff. So can you talk about like having that people problem and I guess tribe hate is what your biggest fear would be? Can you elaborate on the fear of tribe
Yeah.
hate?
Yeah. So, and it's funny too, because my wife's actually an ENFP. So it's the same thing for her.
Did
Tribe
you get
hate.
type as an ENFP?
She got typed as an ENFP by Dave and Chan. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Cool.
Yeah. So
Standard or a jumper?
no, she's standard.
Okay.
She's female, masculine, consume, play, sleep, blast.
Okay. Double feminine?
No, she's feminine, masculine.
Feminine. Oh, she's an FM. Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Serious? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I can I interview her sometime?
Yeah, I'm sure she might.
Okay.
Um, but anyway, yeah, so she's a good balance for me, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Uh,
anyways, yeah, go for it.
but anyway, to get back to your question, so sh- uh, being double activated on FE, let's start there. Is interesting. So I'm double activated on blast, so I love to tell the tribe what's going on. But I also, with TI, I don't like to control the tribe either. Um, at least in part. I do kind of with a blast, but I don't either with a TI. And the weird thing with that FE is I see emotion from the tribe. I see it really readily. I see when they're upset. I see when they're happy. I can see all the things, but hell if I can do anything about it, right? That's where I run into issues. And then if I'm going to make a big decision that might affect, like, say, a friendship or a relationship with a business or something, that's when I start getting all the angst. I'm kind of in a faith transition right now, kind of leaving religion, and with me and my wife are. And for her, that was just like, see you later. For her, it wasn't a big deal. For me, it's like, but what are my friends going to think? But what are they going to do about this? What if, what if with everything on the tribe, are they just going to dump me? Are they still going to see, that's where I start having problems. And it's weird because my TI is just like, so what, who cares? Right. But then that swing comes in and it's just like, oh man, but what if, and then I've got that NE that likes to just project all kinds of random scenarios also as a demon. And, yeah, so I have a hard time if I feel like the tribe is hating on me or is gonna hate on me based on a decision I'm gonna make. That's where I start having a hard time wanting to move forward. I feel like I'm stuck.
So part of the IP's fear of tribe hate is getting abandoned. Can you talk about that feeling of abandonment, like get like that fear of that? Because you actually just mentioned that right now.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah. So, like, again, I'll go back to like this whole trial of faith I'm having in myself with my religion and my personal beliefs and everything else. I've got a lot of good people at church that I love, that are my friends, that I consider, brothers, I would consider sisters. Now that I haven't told anyone just yet. I mean, my wife knows, obviously, and some other people know, but I haven't like come out and said, you know what, I just, this isn't for me anymore. And the thing I'm constantly worried about is, hey, is my buddy over here, is he just going to be like, we're done, we're not friends, we're not going to be, I'm not going to associate with you anymore, we're done. That's the feeling I have. I've told my wife this, excuse me. I've always felt that hell would be to have the most marvelous paradise in existence with no one there to share it because they didn't want to be there with me. To me, that's hell. And those are the types of things I project from the tribe. They're just gonna up and just see you later.
yeah, they're gonna think you're a heathen and then get
Exactly.
yeah. I think you're good, man. I was a Christian growing up too, and I left the faith, and I'm okay. I told everyone, and no one cared. So it's I think
And that's the funny thing is, like, my logical brain, my TI is like, so like I said, so what? It's gonna be fine. No one cares. And then even better, then you'll get to sift through who you really are, your friends, and who aren't, right? So this is like a win-win. But then that FI comes in and just starts saying, saying this and saying that, and it's kind of crazy. It's weird how it functions.
I mean, you can still be friends with those people who
Well,
are.
I feel that. I feel like I could still be friends,
Yeah,
right?
it's
But it's
not.
FE that's saying, like, no, they're probably going to dump you.
Well, I'm trying to think about. I mean, they tried converting me back, but I just, I just tell them it's like, I'm not into it. But hey, you know
I
what?
know, but right now you're double deciding, right?
Yeah, but I'm like, you do you. I'm not have nothing against, if you
Right.
believe.
And I'm the same way. If
Yeah,
some of
so
my friends left, I'd be like, great, hey, you do you. I'm fine with that.
yeah,
It's are you gonna leave me?
okay.
That's that.
I see where your fear is going. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. It's hard for me to wrap around the fear of like they're gonna leave you because you change faith. Because for me, it's like, yeah, I don't. I mean, if they're so quick to leave you because you change your faith, I mean, how good is your friendship, the foundation of your friendship to begin with?
Right.
Like
And again, that I totally understand. I
yeah,
totally get it.
yeah.
But if we're talking about those demon swings and what they look like, for me, that's one really strong aspect that I'm experiencing right now. That FE is like, they're gonna leave me.
You know what, you know what, man. I think you can we can logic block it all we want, but a fear is a fear, and you're not gonna get rid of it with logic. So like me as an EP with like like the government and all that stuff. So it's like, yeah, I know it's fake, but it doesn't change the fact it's still there, and it.
Right.
So
And see, that's where I can double observe all day long. And this is my wife actually just today even was asking about medical, with the whole pandemic and the vaccines and everything. Am I being crazy looking at it like this? Are they really out to get us? Are they really? And then I can just go, well, you got this side, you got this side. It doesn't bother me one way or the other. I mean, I've got my own opinions, but it's just like I can see how people do that.
Can you let's go see what a double observer looks like. So how would you double observe this then? Because I'm curious. Like, how did you explain to your wife?
Yeah. So today I this is basically what I said. I said, okay. I said, COVID's obviously real. People obviously have it. It's obviously killed people, right? The funny thing was, and I'm not really a conspiracy theorist. I really am not, but I do know things happen. Um, there was some research that was done. I found it online at the very, very beginning of the pandemic. So we're talking like March, April of 2020, right? So a couple of years ago almost. And now I can't find it. It's been removed. And I'm like, that's really odd. But anyway, COVID's real. It does kill people. It does create, I think I might have COVID right now. That's why my voice is messed up, along with the rest of my family. I'm not anti-vax. There's vaccines that work. People that are anti-vax, I think, don't look at the history and say, hey, we've had millions upon millions of people die. We've had lots of comorbidities associated with things like polio that are lifelong. If you got a vaccine, you wouldn't have those problems. Are vaccines perfect? No, they're not perfect, but they do a pretty good job. And so when you're looking at the government and the people in the government, you got to say, well, being in healthcare myself, most of us are actually trying to just help people, right? We don't have any ulterior motives. Are there people in the government that are like that? Yes. Are there people in the government that want to maybe control and cause harm or for whatever purpose? Probably, right? But overall, it's like, we got to deal with this pandemic. So are you going to get a vaccine? Are you not? I don't care. Do what you want. But as for me, I got a vaccine. And I think, being sick, I'm not going to go out. I'm not going to go try to spread it to anybody. I don't want to spread it to anybody. I don't want people spreading it to me. I always hate it when people come in from work or into work and they're sick. Before COVID, they'd come in with the flu in the wintertime and be like, why are you here? Go home. You're not going to function well. You're going to get other people sick. COVID is no different. But are there people in the government trying to screw us over? Probably. Are there people in the government trying to help us? Yeah, it's both. And so I don't know. That doesn't bother me. It's just, it is what it is. People are trying to do the best that they can, I think, as a whole, and we just got to move through it together.
I see. Okay, I can see what you're doing there. I can see that for you, everything that you said, they all exist. COVID exists, bad people exist, bad government people exist, but also there's good government people. Is there a conspiracy? Yeah, there's definitely a conspiracy. So what? It is what it is. Okay, I see. Okay, but you're not going all in this. It's like, you kind of accept that. You're like, well, it is whatever. Who cares?
Yeah. There's facts. My NE can go crazy with conspiracy, or it can plot what I know for sure and put it together and
So your wife is not cool with this, so you have to like kind of calm her down. Then you have to tell her, like, you have to explain.
So every once in a while, because she sees she's on social media a lot, so she'll see people say that are hard one way, and she sees a lot of it against the vaccine, against medical treatment, against this, that, or the other, and she'll be like, "Am I crazy? Like, isn't this real?" Like she's trying to bring her, because she sees it that way, and she wants to. I think her NE wants to go that way, and her SI, which is feminine and at the bottom, doesn't have the facts. Very movable with the facts. What is the facts online anyway? And so I'm kind of with Savior SI masculine, kind of able to bring back the facts to real life and say, hold up, come back. Here's probably what's going on.
So I'm curious. You and your wife are both self-above tribe. So how are you guys making it work out? Like, someone has to play the DE role, right? And she's technically more DE than you because she's the double decider here. Right. So is this how your relationship is, or is it like, are you like, who's doing the more DE here? Because like someone has to play a DE role, right?
Yeah, I think it depends on the situation. I mean, at home, or I'll go back. In the relationship, since we're both DI, we're very much first and foremost, you do you, right? We've decided to come together. We have a great relationship. We have problems like everyone else. But in the end, we're more acutely concerned with the other person being good with themselves. Now she's that masculine TE, and it's generally balanced. But it's funny. She made a Facebook post yesterday or the day before, and the kids had told her. They said they're more concerned when mom gets mad than when dad gets mad. And I can get loud, I can yell a lot, but when mom gets mad, they know, right? They're screwed. And so, and like just with like the SI at the house. We can talk about this too. I actually had some comments. I was watching your video from a couple days ago when you had that panel of the ESFJ, the ISFJ, the INTP, and the ENTP,
Right.
and they were talking about SI, and it's the non-sexy function and whatnot. And I was like, I think SI is actually a pretty cool function as I'm starting to learn more about what it does. But you know, because she's chaos and she invites the chaos and she's comfortable with the chaos. The TE actually comes in when it's reprimanding me, not so much the kids, because I'm coming in with my SI going, hey, this needs to get done. This needs to get done. These things have to be in their, you know, in their place or whatever.
Yeah.
He's just like, no. Like, you're going to do it this way. This is what's going to happen because this is the way it works for the family, right? That masculine TE. I'm like, okay, fine. Because yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you're feminine TE, so you're gonna yield.
I
Um,
yeah.
so okay, so since you watched that panel interview a few days ago, how do you feel? Because TE shames TI and FE shames FI, right? So you're dating someone with masculine TE. How do you feel like you get shamed with the TE shames your TI? Because you're lead TI, right? So that's gonna be like the worst thing.
Yeah, it's funny. Great example. So we moved in our current house. We've been here since March, and we're renovating. We've been renovating for the last 9 months. And when it comes to actually doing something, she's just like, just do this, this, or this. And my TI and my SI especially is like, hold up, time out. You can't just do this, or this. There's steps involved. There's things you got to, be worried about. And most of the time, she's right. And it drives me. It's kind of a blow to my identity because I'm like, I should have known that. I should have been able to figure that out.
Yeah.
She's just doing it on the fly, right? She's just and it's not that she's right 100% of the time, because sometimes I do, my TI does get to shine a little bit, but yeah, she's just like, I don't see the problem. Just do it this way, and this way. And I have a friend who's an electrician. He comes and helps me sometimes, and I think he's an ISFP, so he's also got this TE. And when those two are trying to troubleshoot something, they're just like do, they're just going so fast, and I'm like, what's going? I can't follow. And then they go do it, and it's fine, and I'm just like, whatever. And I feel bad. I do. I feel like not subhuman, but I just feel lesser because it's like I should have been able to follow that. I should have been able to know what you were talking about, but they just go so fast and they understand it so well that I'm learning to get over that and not take it as a personal blow.
Yeah.
But because that's my identity, it's hard not to. It's really a work in progress.
Yeah, no, I can relate with the FE shaming me, so it goes both ways. The way I see it is like any extrovert function, whether that be TE or FE, is best for on the fly, like when you are in the moment and you need to be effective in the moment, then TE or FE is better. FE is like the best behavior for the moment, and TE is like what works best for the moment. But
Right.
I feel like for long-term planning, I think FI and TI would be superior. Because FEU is trying to like put a band-aid over the emotional problem, right? By like, doing some song and dance and some bullshit, right? But like the FI is really gonna try to understand your emotional behavior at a deeper layer. And and try to unravel it, right? So that's better in the long term than, you know, the song and dance. But if you're just doing customer service, then no one cares about FI, right? It's FE, because you're just like,
Right.
whatever makes this person smile in the moment, and then they can, you know, fuck off after, right? Who cares? Right? You know. So I'm curious now. So for TI, what kind of long-term planning would you use a TI for, where it's gonna work long term, it's gonna be effective long term, you know, like not for the moment, but like long term, like where does it come in? Like how do you see it? How do you see yourself using it to make things work, uh, you know, long term?
That's a good question. Um, I think with my TI, because I'm savior sleep, right? And it's double masculine savior sleep. So I'm constantly working out in my brain, how does anything and everything work out for me in the physical world? So I'm constantly planning ahead. Now I'm not necessarily writing those down. I'm not necessarily putting it up on a, you know, on a chart or on a board or someplace and saying, you know, I got to hit these objectives over the next so many years or whatever. But I know, so for example, when I was in college, I knew I needed to make a decent amount of money because I knew I was going to have a family, right? So I was able to say, okay, what fields make money, and what fields can I be good at, and how is this going to work? And so I started just chiseling down. I was like, well, I've always kind of wanted to do medical. I love biology, so maybe the medical field would be the way to go. And then once I got there, then I was able to say, okay, so I've got my base. Then I was able to say, well, I could be a doctor, I could do this, you know, this, or whatever. And so I said, well, if I want a family and I want to have some time with my family, maybe being a doctor is not the best. Maybe I should be a pharmacist. Maybe I should be a, you know, whatever. And so I actually had to go consume a little bit. And then once I did that, I was able to say, okay, on top of medical, I'm going to do this. And then it just started stacking on top until I was like, pharmacist, I'm going to be a pharmacist. And I knew I could make money. I knew I could take care of my family. I knew I could be successful at it. And so that's what I did. And that's kind of what I do with most things. What gets me where I have to be really careful is when I don't do the consume on those things thoroughly enough. Usually when I'm trying to plan, I'll consume a lot more. But if it's just, hey, I think I want to go do this thing, then I have to be really careful. Church was one of those big things. I never really consumed church as far as updating my own worldview and how it affected me and or my family. I was so into it because my SI was just like, this is what you've always done, so just keep doing it because it works. But I never was asking, is it going to work for my kids? Is it going to work for my wife? Is it going to work for our relationship? So, but yeah, I'm always stacking those things to make sure that they're going to work. And I think it's a good thing about TISI is once it's stacked and my known information is there, it's going to work. The downside is if I'm not paying attention to the consume and the FE, it could be a horrible, horrible thing in the long run.
I see. Okay. Okay. That's a really good description of TISI, especially double masculine. Like I like how I like how ST clear it was to how you described that. That was it was as ST clear as you could get. Like you described the process like to a T, you know. Like I think anyone watching this who has, you know, TISI in demon, they should like consult with you or something. Or like, cause like that was really well like explained, like how you broke down, like, okay, you know, like this career makes a lot of money, but you know you'll also be good at it and you'll enjoy it. Plus, it would work for your family. So I like, yeah, that was like really well described. I think the long-term planning was more for like the career side though, not for like the relationship thing, because it's FE, right? So it's not like long-term planning. It's more like for like sing, like, you know, song and dance for like short term. So like I think your wife would be better at like the relationship planning long term with the FISI, you know, like, you know, what would make your family feel good, right, in the long term, you know?
Right. And she does that religiously. I mean, even though her SI is, you know, at the bottom, she's very much in tune, like you were talking about. She's very much in tune with each of the kids, because we've got 6 kids, so there's a lot there. She's very much in tune with her and I, and then the 8 of us as a whole. and where things need to get met. And she's able to dive into those things so much better than I can. Like, I can see that there's a need, but like I said, I'm kind of like Ron Swanson. When it comes to actually doing anything about it, I'm like,
Yeah.
you know.
You're handicapped when it comes to doing
I'm very handicapped.
that. Yeah.
Which is funny because, again, it's like double activated on the FE. So I see it. I'm very much aware of it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to fixing it, and I want to ST fix the NF, I am not good at ST fixing NF.
Well, it's kind of like with NI, right? Like I can't do what the NI people are doing. I can see it with the NE, but I can't do what they're doing. So it's kind of annoying because I can't plan like the way they're planning. So
Right.
like it is what it is. It's you can't have all the functions, so you have to like share with like from other people, collaborate. All right, cool, man. Your consume is fourth, and it's NT, but I feel like because you're a glass lizard, I don't think it's gonna be like the biggest problem still. Because you're a double observer also, and like the way I see things with like double observer is, even though a double observer might have consume last or blast last, the fact that it's like in the middle, it's like not the, it's gonna get hit somehow. You're gonna do like the double observing, the gathering and the organizing. You're gonna do it at some point. Like you cannot not do it. So do you even though you're consume last, do you still see yourself being able to do enough of it that you don't ruin your life?
Shan said something really interesting to me when I was talking to her. She said the consume lasts, especially like me and Dave both, right? Because we're both last play consume. The tidal waves don't necessarily come very often for consume last. And you might be onto something there, because we do enough consume to get through. But she said, 10, 15, 20 years, at some point it's going to hit, and it's going to hit you really hard. Because even though you're doing a little bit of it, you're not doing enough to make a difference. And so, like, one of the things I've had to consume, going back to the faith thing, the religion thing, when my wife first came to me and said, I think this is, total bunk, and we need to reassess. She'd been consumed, because she's consumed first, right? She'd been consuming all kinds of stuff, and I'd been kind of consuming over the years a little bit, but it wasn't until I turned the consume on, I mean really turned it on, and went through it and made some of the strides, that I started to finally see what she was talking about. And I was like, oh. And then updating that worldview, I think, is the second part of it, because you can consume all day long, but if you don't integrate it with sleep, you have a problem. And this is, I'm a little envious of the sleep consumes, because I know they're doing this on a regular basis. But so yes, I do consume, but I've been more cognizant of it over the last 2 years since I've been typed. And so I try to make myself do it more often now. And I think even over the last 2 years, it saved me a couple of tidal waves, mostly in my relationships with my family and my wife. I think we would have overcome them regardless, but it still would have been bad. And now, because I've been able to do some of that consume, now my wife and I have this common ground that we can now build off of together. Whereas before, it was she was building her thing, and I wasn't building anything. I was just, down here. So,
on a recent video that Dave and Shan released, they talk about how the grand stack does matter. So your consume is your first two functions. So those technically would be your strongest. I know Shan talks about being blast last, but like her blast is her first two function, right? So once she actually gets started blasting, she is very good at it. It's just like getting started to do it is the hard part. Do you also relate with that sentiment, where once you do get started consuming the NT, like the recents and whatnot, and problem solving and finding solutions, that once you get started doing that, it's fine. It's just like the initial inertia of trying to consume that is the biggest problem. Would you say that's true for you?
Yeah, I for myself, I can say that that's probably true. Once again, I keep going back to the same thing because I'm so SI, so I apologize. But again, with the faith thing, once I started consuming some of that, and really going down. Then it just became like a regular thing, like you said, like gaining the momentum. So it wasn't a big deal. The hard part with like the faith thing is that's a lot of NF consume, which I don't have. I've got the NT consume.
Right.
So I'm trying to make theoretical sense out of all this stuff. And so I have to go back to her to get my NF, so that she can kind of help me NF process my NT consume, if that makes sense. Because I'm always, and it was funny, we were actually having a conversation about this before I hopped on with you. We were talking about things with regards to religion, and she doesn't look at necessarily question. I would look at a question like, is this truth claim real, right? And then I would go through the ST of why it could or couldn't be real. For her, it's not a question. It's just like, there's this thing happening and I don't feel good about it, so it's got to be wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm just like, no, like you have to go through the process of figuring it out. Like you have this thing, you consume what you can about it. And then I've got to translate that NE to SI somehow. So now I've got to go find the SI about it,
Yeah.
which kind of drives me crazy in some ways, because it's like, I can take what I'm learning at face value, but if I don't justify it in that it really does exist at some point, my double observing is like, well, you might not be able to use that. So you got to hold off. Prove that it's true first, then you can process it into some sort of concrete thing that you can then use for your NF.
Well, I mean, the good thing about you and your wife is even though you don't have NF consume, you have NF play, so you can get it from people. You just need to talk to people about the NF stuff, and that's how you're gonna figure that out. Because like with your wife, she has NT play like me, right? So like the figuring out part, who cares? We just outsource it to someone else. We just talk to people. And like if someone else figured it out, great. You know, it's nothing personal about like the NT, you know.
Right.
But even for you, your NT is not personal, it's consume, right? So you're just like gathering it also, you know.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too that you mentioned that, because like some of the people I like to hang out with the most are actually NFs. One of my best friends, I'm pretty sure, is an INFP. And it's funny because when I met Dave reminded me so much of him, even though he's an INTJ, right? You just get that NF vibe. I don't know if you got the same vibe from Dave when you met him. But it's fun because it's like, I've got someone to translate some of this stuff for me, so I don't have to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So I totally get what you're saying. The NF, I've always described it. Anytime I get a feeling about anything, and it can be totally random. This is also one of the things that has driven me crazy about being lead TI, is anytime I get a feeling, I want to suppress it. Right. That's the natural instinct. And it just, I have synesthesia, so I associate it with different colors. So I'll see the color purple, and it's just something I can't quite grasp, right? And I want to grasp it, and I want to work with it so I can mold it into something, but I can't. And that's why I love my wife, and I love talking to people like my best friend or even Dave, because that NF they're able to maybe not mold the purple haze, so to speak, but they're able to blow it to where I need to go, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I see NF as like the map, you know, like
yeah, for sure.
Like there's no point of having ST if you don't have the NF first, right? Like the NF tells you where you need to go in life, and then the ST is like the steps to get there. Your NF is play, so it's kind of like what Jordan Peterson said. So same function stack as you. I don't know if you read his book. I'm probably not, because you're consume last, but it's you know,
I've got it on my shelf, but I haven't read it.
I think you should listen to the audiobook actually. Your auditory, so I think you would like it. He's like, it's nice to listen to him. He has a good voice. So, but anyways, he talks about like your purpose, and how purpose is not something you find. It's something that comes to you. And I think he said that because he has NF play, and you know, it comes to you because you know you get it from other people because it's play, right? But like it's not true for the INTJs and those guys, because they have NF sleep, so they do find their purpose from within. You know, they don't need it from others. And like for me and your like wife, who are both ENFPs, we get our purpose from new life experience, because it's consumed, right? So it really depends on where. So for you, it's from people. Like the more different people you talk to, the more purposeful you would feel. And I guess the more you help people too, the more purposeful you would feel as well. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, and it's interesting too. I actually I do a lot of consume through blasting, and I'll blast to myself.
Yeah.
I've got an hour drive to work and an hour back. And there's been plenty of times when I'm in the car by myself and I'll be processing this stuff out loud just because I need to ping off something. And then as I'm literally talking it out loud, it starts making sense and I start getting some of those concepts back. So yeah, if all else fails, I can blast play with myself. But yeah, I prefer someone else.
Um, so let's talk about your blast since you brought it up already.
Okay.
Your blast is interesting because it's your second. We both have this thing that's happening to both of us where our second animal is using our third and fourth function, which is supposed to be the weakest.
Right.
So my first question in regards to that is, even though your blast is a savior, do you still find it challenging because you're tapping your third and fourth
Yes,
functions?
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
does it stress you out to use it, even though you're using it all the time?
It doesn't stress me out, but sometimes it gets frustrating because it's SF blast on top of it all, which is like, I know sometimes we make fun of SF blast because it's like the worst blast to have, right? Because I don't know it, especially as an ST, like I'm trying to ST explain stuff, and sometimes the F just doesn't want a T. But what I found though is I never get sick of using it, almost never. I do. Hey, buddy, I've got a little boy in here. Um, I do have, or, but it does get frustrating sometimes. One example, and this may not be kind of what you're looking for, but being lead sleep, I do give my boo-boo reports. And when Shen pointed that out, I just kind of went, oh man, face palm.
What do you mean,
Uh,
boo boo reports?
so the sleep boo-boo report. So lead sleeps tend to tell you what's wrong with them
Okay.
physically or mentally or whatever.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize I was doing that so much until she pointed it out. And I was like, oh yeah, I definitely do that. And so like one time I was in a car accident and I got banged up pretty good. And so I had to go blast and tell everyone. I had to go tell the tribe what had happened. And of course, being SF blast, it had to follow a certain sequence.
Yeah.
And then I had to tell them about me and about what happened, about the outcomes and all this stuff. But I didn't have an audience. I had, multiple people. I only had an audience of one. And so when I would tell that person, I was like, great, I got it out of my system. Good. And then someone new would, like, if I was at work, someone new would come in later on and then I'd have to tell them. And it's the same story, exactly the same story. And then, an hour later, someone else would come in and then I would have to tell them this sleep boo-boo report. And that gets frustrating. I don't want to tell it. I know people get sick because I don't like to necessarily hear other people's woes, right? And yet I have this compulsive thing to want to tell people. And so it gets frustrating because I don't want to do it over and over and over. And yet there's this need to do it. And so I'm trying to temper that a little bit. I catch myself still doing it. But yeah, that blast in that sense, blast is really frustrating for me. In another sense, blast has been really good. Dave even pointed this out, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. On Sundays I make baguette bread for the family. So every Sunday we have bread. Now we might have more than that. We might have cheese and charcuterie and everything else. But my purpose in making bread every Sunday is to get the family together at least once a week for a good meal. And whether they want bread or not, they're getting bread, and I will SF control the snot out of that to make it happen. Um, and because it's repetitive, I can do it, and it's good for the family. That doesn't bother me one bit. So I don't know if I answered the question.
Well, the boo boo report thing is interesting because I do think my mom is an ISFJ. I think she sleep, blast, play, consume, like same animal stack as you, and
Yeah.
he does repeat the same story over and over and over again. A lot of it boo boo report, whether that be like mental health related or physical health. But But I'm like, oh my God, I've heard it once, that's good enough. Like you don't need to repeat yourself over and over again. And the other thing too with your bread story, I don't think that's a bad thing per se, the bread story one, because I think like if you're trying to get everyone together for like a meal, I think that's a nice thing. It's a nice gesture, and it does feel good to kind of have a feeling of togetherness. So I don't think that's bad. The bad thing is the repetitiveness. So there's like I think the SF blast is good and bad. It's like, it depends on how you use it.
Sure.
Um, I mean, like Hitler is an ISFJ, and he's play last, right? And he used his SF blast to control the whole nation to be like, to be like the worst humans possible,
World.
right? Right. So yeah, you can go that direction. Like SF blast clearly is like the most evil like function like animal if in the hands of the wrong of the bad person. But
Right.
but like Chris Voss is also an ISFJ, and he uses SF blast to save hostages
Right.
from terrorists, right? So like he manipulates them into releasing the hostage, which is a
Yeah.
good thing. So it's I see it as like the most, it's like one of the most powerful like animal there is. So depends on how you want to use it, of
I was
course.
gonna say, in the hand of someone skilled, I think, like you said, if maybe if I was lead SF, it'd be different. But I'm still an INTP, right? So
Yep.
I'm still TI savior, which means it's still this funky thing for me. So I want to use it, but the TI sometimes gets in the way.
Well, at least it's a savior, so it's gonna prevent you from like all the fears that you have about you know tribe hate or abandonment. Like the probability of that happening is a lot lower, because every time you use that FE, it like reduces the probability of that fear
Right.
of yours from happening. So it's a good thing that you have it, because like the other INTPs, they already got abandoned. So you're good, you're still good, and you're kicking.
Well,
So
and it's interesting too, being double activated. I'm much more aware of it. Like my brother, I think he's an ISTP, but I want to say consume, play, sleep. So he's got like this double activated TI. When it comes, he just doesn't even see fear of the tribe so much. Like for him, he can just be like, screw off. And that's the end of it. It does not bug him. And I'm like, how can it not bug you? And he's like, I don't know. It just doesn't bug me. Maybe he's an ESTP and he's just a double decider and I just haven't seen it.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird.
Yeah, he might be a double decider. I mean, from what I know, like the real IPs, they are scared to get abandoned, and they are scared that of tribe hate, and they do get tribe hate, and they do get abandoned. Like I have a friend who's an INTP. He actually met David Chan also, and we abandoned him before for him being too selfish, right? Like we were watching this TV show called Spartacus, and he was being such a diva. Like we always have to go by his schedule, and if things doesn't work for him, he's not gonna um, work in cohesion with the tribe. So one day
Yeah.
we just got fed up and we kicked him out of our like our FE. It's like I don't know. I don't know if you saw that interview with Tom Hanks, and he said that for him, connection with the tribe is like the most
Yeah.
important thing.
Yeah.
So my buddy lost his connection with the tribe. We kicked him out from our TV show that we watch because he's being a diva. And then he
Yeah.
was so butthurt. I still remember talking to him on the phone. He was so butthurt. FE, you can't hide your feelings, right? So he was like, I can tell he's like pretty much crying on the phone, and I'm like, well, shouldn't have been a dick, you know,
Yeah.
you need. So, I want to ask you about that then. Like, you're kind of interesting because you're a glass lizard, double activated FE, right? Uh, but masculine TI. So you want to do things that works for you. You're high sleep, so you're always trying to preserve your energy. But because you're hyper aware of the tribe, um, do you tend to just forego the sleep in favor of making sure nothing bad happens to you by just going along with the tribe, or do you still do the IP thing? Like which decision would take precedence for you?
Yeah, sometimes there's been plenty of times when I just went along with the tribe. And I think it really, I've actually been thinking about this a lot lately. I think it really depends on what's going on. If the tribe is trying to tell me how to do something and like, you're going to conform this way or else, that's when TI takes over and says, no, like, And or if you're telling me what I'm thinking, that actually happened to me recently at work. I won't go into the details, but a coworker essentially was accusing me of some things that I was not thinking at all. There was some there was some perceptions problems and whatnot, but that slingshotted me into the pissed off position really fast because she was then dictating what I was thinking, and I was like, no one gets to dictate what I think but me. Period. So if it's like a control thing, like you're going to control me and you're going to tell me what to do and you have to do it a certain way, and I have decided it's not going to happen that way, then we have problems. If it's just if it's something that's inconsequential, like I don't know, like today, someone called in, so I need you to switch over to go to this other pharmacy to work or whatever. It's like, okay, fine, whatever. I don't care. Like you're still not telling me how I'm doing my job, because I know how to do my job and I know how to do it really well. So if you start telling me how I'm doing my job wrong, I'm going to fight you on it. Unless you can find some really, really good, valid like details that are real and put it in my face and say, here, this is what you're doing and it's wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So it really depends on what's going on. If it's something inconsequential to myself and my logic, I don't care. I really don't.
Has that happened to you before where someone did confront you because you consume last, right? So they're like, well, you didn't consume all this. Here, look, and
Yeah,
like, has that happened to you? And you're like, oh shit.
no, it hasn't. And I think it's because I've been very careful with that, especially since I've become a medical professional. There's been a few times when, actually, no, I lied. There has been one time. There was a time when I was talking to a patient about a medication, and I told her not to take it, and I can't remember why. But I remember looking at something in the chart or something, and I just remember thinking, no, she really shouldn't be taking this. The doctor came into the pharmacy later that day and said, why did you tell her not to take it? She really needs this. And I said, well, because of this. And then the doctor proceeded to give me a whole bunch of reasons as to why she did need it. And I just remember feeling so small because I didn't consume. And I apologized right then and there, because I was like, what else do I do? Right.
Right.
And I called the patient and I made it right. But yeah, so it's probably happened more than I want to remember, but but yeah, no, it has. I'm sure it has happened more than that. But yeah, that's where consume can get me into trouble with colleagues.
That's interesting because your tidal wave was it was a thing problem. It wasn't like a people problem, like it was it was information related.
Right.
Yeah, so it's kind of odd because you're gonna get both. I guess what's happening for you is like you kind of blunted the decider problems, but instead you also took in some observer problems now as a result. So instead of having one big problem in decider land, you have like 66% decider problems and 32% observer. Would you say that's about right, like for you?
Yeah, that's probably pretty close. I remember, when I first got into OPS, I was watching a lot of the videos, and I said at the beginning, I thought I was an INTJ at first. There was a lot of things that Dave was going over his tidal waves that I was relating to.
Like what?
It was about sensory stuff, and it wasn't until later that I was just like, oh, it's because you're not consuming. It's not because you're an INTJ. It's just because you're not consuming. You're not paying attention to the things that you need to be paying attention to. And so yeah, and this is, I think this is why so many people type themselves upside down, right? Because we all have decider problems, we all have observer problems. It's where's the predominance of it, and definitely the predominance is concern about tribe for me. If I'm being
right, yeah, like the fourth function is always going to be the king in terms of like your biggest life problem. But I'm looking at your consume last, and it's not like Dave, because Dave is SE, right? So it's like sensory.
Right.
Yours is N. Your biggest problem is N, and because it's NT, it's like understanding, which is weird because you're an INTP. So INTPs tend to have a good understanding of things compared to most people. But you're NT last, so it's like a weird paradox. So how do you relate with that? Like, I know I can see an ISFJ having understanding problem because of the NT fourth and also third and fourth function, but you have it as your first and second, and you are an you're an INTP, for God's sake. So what kind of understanding problems do you have from that
Yeah.
NT last?
So I've actually been thinking about this a lot too. When I'm in a flow state and my NE is not, we'll just say serving as a demon, when it's being balanced with, when it's balancing the SI, my understanding of things is actually fine. Like I might have talked it up a little too much during this whole interview, right? Generally speaking, my understanding is great. I remember in school looking at other people thinking, how can you not get this? It's so simple. You take in the facts, NE connects all the dots that it needs to connect, problem solved. No big deal.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning to do more of like the, if I start thinking about weird or negative situations like out in the future that could happen, that's my red flag to say, okay, and he's doing something in a demon state. And so most of those problems will come with the understanding as an NF thing, right? But when it comes to NT or ST, in a non-demon state, I'm totally fine. And I get it really quick. I pick up on things very fast, generally. So when I said I related to Dave, it's because I know he was having he has sensor problems all over the place, right? I had sensor problems, but I was dealing with them. I didn't want to deal with them. And so I thought because I could see them and hated it, I was demon sensor initially. But I was aware of them. I was dealing with them. I just hated it. I didn't want to deal with it. I wanted to do something else. And it had to deal with sprinklers, and it had to deal with the house, and it had to deal with the water heater and all these things. It took me a while to realize that those things for him build up because he's just not aware. And for me, I just hate having to deal with, I mean, who likes to have to fix problems, right?
Right. Fair enough. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of like your like an INTP with not double activated FE. Like they have no clue. Like they're neglecting the tribe's emotions, and then until it's too late, essentially.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I want to ask you about your NF again. Your NF double feminine, and it's purpose related. So I was interviewing an INTJ yesterday who had double feminine NF sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And for him, his life purpose and meaning is always shifting because it's double feminine. So he can never seem to grasp into something solid in terms of like what life map or path he should follow, even though he had in a savior state because he's freaking double feminine. So your NF is double feminine. So that means you're gonna get your purpose from the tribe. But because it's freaking double feminine, it's gonna be changing rapidly. It's gonna be extremely movable. It's gonna be hard to latch onto something. So would you say you have problems with finding life purpose because it's something confusing because it's ever changing, ever moving?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that struggle?
Yeah. I can bring it back to this whole faith crisis thing, or faith journey, or whatever you want to call it. So having been born into a religion, having grown up in it, and going through, almost 40 years of it, it was kind of already set for me, so I didn't have to think about it too much. When it came to purpose for other things or the why of other things, I could be listening to two people argue who were very much set and had their NF like determined, right? And I could hear one and be like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. And then I could hear the other one and be like, oh man, he's making great points too, and I could just flow between the two. And I'd always come out of those types of conversations never grounded or never settled, because I'm like, man, they both made good points. I have no idea. I've got my thing over here. I'm just going to do that, and that'll be good. Since kind of leaving this religion that I was born into, I've had that very issue, and that's the struggle I've been dealing with internally. It's like, well, what's the purpose of this? What's the purpose of that? Where do I find the meaning? And you're right. I've wanted for so long for somebody to just come up and say, hey, this is the purpose. Just take this, grab it, and run with that. And what I'm finding more and more is, as much as I want that, I can't. That's not going to be the answer to my problem. people can help me kind of understand that. Or I can say, well, what about this? And they can help me analyze that. Like my wife does that. I can say, well, what about this? And she'll be like, yeah, that's good. Or actually, maybe you need to look at it from this angle. But yeah, it's not coming from myself either. And so it's this weird thing where I feel lost, because again, it's that haze that I just can't grab onto, and it's not coming from within. And every time I see something out here, I want to grab onto it, but when I do, it's just, it's just like mist. I can't grab onto it. So it's been tough to figure out and navigate. Okay, well, what's this new NF that I'm trying to integrate into my life?
Based on what you said, I have a possible solution for you.
Talk to me, Goose.
Okay, so I'm just listening. I'm just hearing you out, like talk about stuff, and I'm like thinking about your animal stack and whatnot.
Yeah,
And from what I can see, your biggest issue. So each animal is attached to an archetype, right? So
right.
sleep is attached to IPs. Blast is attached to IJs.
Yeah,
Play is attached to EJs, and consume is attached to EP, right? EP denotes that you need to gather new life experience.
right.
That's your consume, right? Um, and also when it comes to play also means that you need to have multiples of different people. That means a variety, like a lot of different people, not like singular people. They've always say things like, oh, IPs have the same problem as IJs, where IJs, they don't want to consume a lot of new information, while IPs, they don't want to have too many different people.
Right.
They lock into like one or two or a few people, and they go all in with that, which kind of shows me help me identify what your problem is, which is lack of gathering and lack of people variety. So
Yeah.
basically, from what I can tell, that needs to be done on your part is, at the bare minimum, you need to find like 10 groups of people that you're gonna assist, that you're gonna help, and you're gonna solve their problem. So NT is problem solving, right? So you're gonna find 10 group of people, and you're gonna NT solve their problem by researching how to solve their problem. And after you help solve the problem of those, or at least come close, or at least make a dent or some kind of progress with those 10 groups of people, I think that's gonna tell you which social cause means the most to you, and also which social cause you have the most ability to also solve. But you can't find it if you don't do this step first, if you don't do the
Oh,
gathering.
sure. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
and I've been realizing that more and more. Like I need to get extroverted about it, right?
yeah.
And of course, those are the demons. So those are the hard ones to even get started on. Recognizing it's good. I didn't know I was going to get psychoanalyzed here.
I mean, it was just something that popped in my head while you were
It's
talking.
totally cool. It's
Yeah,
totally
like I had a big light bulb, but yeah, man, like I'm just thinking, like on your own, based on your ST, like like you do need to have the variety, otherwise you're gonna get stuck in this forever. Like there's no solution until you've done the gather, both the
right.
people gather and the problem solving gather. you know
Yeah.
yeah. And the craziest thing here is, you don't know which one is the right one until you try it, and it has to be new. It cannot be something that you already know. Like, can't be like religion, like Christianity,
Right.
or pharmacy related, because like those are in your box, so
Right.
that's not the right ones, you
Right.
know
No,
um
I totally hear you. My wife, she hasn't said anything so much like that, but it's kind of the same message of just like, well, let's go out and get with these folks that are used to be a part of the church, but now they've moved on. So just little things like that. And then one of the things I have been focusing on, it's like I've been realizing it more and more. It's just well, how do I do this? And I know it's just a matter of like, just start putting one foot in front of the other and just seeing where you go. And I think that's been the hard part with that double masculine ST. Like I said at the beginning, it's like, it wants to know the process before it gets going. And that's where I almost always get stuck. If I can't see that process, then I'm paralyzed, right? But I know a big part of that has been like what you're talking about, is even just working with my kids and developing more of a relationship with my children. I think my oldest is also an NF. I think I think I've actually got 2 or 3 NFs. They're more like mom, which again, it's like, we love each other and we're cool with each other, but it's the relationship, it hasn't been able to quite come together like I thought it would, because I'm looking for more of like a simple ST relationship where we can just do something together and be cool with that.
Yeah.
And with one of my daughters, she actually loves to work out and I love to work out. So we'll go out into the garage and do pull-ups and stuff together, and that's it. We're cool. But then with these NFs, I'm just like, so what do we do? What are we doing? You know what I mean?
So your daughter might be like an ST person, so you guys connect through ST, and then
I think my 8-year-old is an ST. Yeah.
yeah. But then the NFs are like, like what am I supposed to do with these guys?
Yeah, and I think they intuitively feel it more. They're like, well, what do I do with dad? Right.
Man, I think you should just like take them to go backpacking in nature. I feel like
If I could, I would. Right now, we've actually done that. When the pandemic started, we started going doing some trails, and man, they hated it.
oh, they hated it. Serious? Like
They
the and really?
Yeah.
How come they hated it? Like it's
They just hated they just hated being outdoors. They hated walking around. They I mean, we've got some I'm in Washington State, so we've got some beautiful where we live scenery by the Columbia
oh,
River.
you live near me, eh? Where in Washington do you live?
We're in the Tri-Cities area in Kennewick.
So is that far from Seattle?
We're about 3 hours and change from Seattle. We're really close to Oregon.
Oh, you're south. You're south. You're
Yeah,
close
we're
to like
southeast.
oh, southeast. That's like even further out. That's like
Yeah.
you're not even close to Vancouver. Is it
No.
Vancouver?
We're probably about 3 hours from Vancouver along the river and then up a little bit.
That's you're talking about the US Vancouver, right? The one by Portland. That's that
Right.
Vancouver? Yeah.
Right.
Not the Vancouver, Canada one. That's where I am.
Vancouver, BC.
No. Okay. Whoa, wow. That's gonna be tough for you because like all your kids have different interests. So you have to like
Yeah. So actually, the one thing we've been able to bond a little bit on is anime. They love watching anime.
yeah.
I was like, okay, let's watch some anime. I can do that.
So because your FE is feminine, are you flexible with like whatever the tribe wants to connect with? It's like for you, it doesn't matter. It's like you don't care.
Generally, I know I had a really hard time with musicals with my wife. Like it's better now, but she hates like Marvel movies, and I have a really hard time with musicals. So we tolerate it for one another.
Oh, I see. That's interesting. And do you have any SF kids? Because you're like SF savior too, right?
I'm not. Excuse me. I think I might have one, but I'm not sure.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, you have an interesting dynamics. You have 6 kids, right? So it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, and then my little two, my youngest is only 2 years old, and he's got to be like a crazy ESTP or something. He's like got to be double masculine because he just.
So okay, so you have SI, right? So
Yeah.
if your kid is like destroying shit in your house, how would you react to that? Because your SI wants to keep things organized and neat and stuff. So how do you
Yeah. It was really hard. Like right now, I could show you, but right now our kitchen's a mess. We've got like this box that's got the kinetic sand. So he'll play in the sand and then he'll dump it all out and then he'll go throw it on the rug and it's purple. So once it gets into the rug, the rug gets purple. It hurts in my brain sometimes. I'm learning more and more to just like let it go. That's what my wife does. She's just like, just let it go. He's busy. He's fine. And if you try to fight him on it, it's going to get even more in more spots, right? So it's taken me a long time to just say, okay, take a deep breath, let it go. And honestly, there's parts of the house that are like my SI, because SI is a personal subjective thing, right? My bedroom can be a total pigsty. It does not bother me. But when the kitchen's not put together, and I can't tell you why that is, but if the kitchen's not put together, I start getting stressed. And I don't know why that is. So yeah, it's hard for me to just let go. And I've been working on it. I really have been working on it, but it's tough. It's really tough.
I am seeing that. SI is so freaking weird, eh? Like you latch onto the weirdest thing. Like for me, it's floors. Like I don't like shit on the floor. Like I don't care where it is as long as it's not on the floor. And it's
Yeah.
weird. Like when people walk in the house with their shoes on, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, like so yeah, I can relate to what you said about like your room could be a pigsty who you don't give a shit, but like for some reason the kitchen it like suddenly matters so
Yeah,
much.
those dishes got to be put away. It's got to be wiped. I don't
Yeah,
want to see food molding. I found an open can behind some stuff today that was literally molding, and I was just like tearing my face off, going, "What is
yeah.
going on in here?"
So do you find yourself connecting with your wife with the NE and SI, even though she has it like in the most extreme direction, because you have both of those functions as well? So you communicate in the same language in a sense with those two functions?
Yes and no. So one thing I've been learning more this year is just how zany and crazy Annie can be. She got onto TikTok this last year. And so I watch like the things that make her just laugh all the time on TikTok. And I look at it and I go, what? You know, like what, so, but as I've been learning those things, and I think my son has any because he'll send her crazy crap on TikTok.
Yeah.
And
They're feeding off each other.
yeah, they feed off you. They just play,
Yeah.
they're skimmers. So I've learned to be like, okay, I can send her these things and she'll laugh at it. And then when she sends me stuff, I can just learn to any appreciate it. Even though I may not always, sometimes I'm like, I don't even get this, and she'll have to explain it to me. But
Yeah.
so yeah, I've been learning to bond more with her over the NE. And then I think for me though, the bigger thing has just been understanding that she has FI. I don't. And that FI is a fickle thing. There's no rhyme or reason to it, just like all the
No, no, it doesn't.
right. It just FI likes what it likes, it hates what it hates, and you
Yeah.
just got to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
So rather than fight it, just be like, okay, she likes dancing. So a couple years ago, I took her on a photo shoot where we did this big uh, uh, tango dance thing. We did a photo shoot with dancing. Um, um, she likes to get dressed up. So one day I bought her, a dress that she could go get dressed up in. She didn't know what was happening. I laid it down and I said, go get dressed. We're going out to dinner. I had reservations just so she could feel pretty. So learning what her FI is and then learning how I can punch those FI buttons in a positive way for her. I think that's the best way I've been able to bond with her in our relationship.
Yeah, that's good that you are seeing that. Um, I did a panel interview a few days ago, and I realized that TI is also extremely illogical. It's weird because you're like backward rationalizing why you like something or why something should work the way it should work, and there's like some objectivity to it, which doesn't make sense because life has there's a lot of things in life that has no objectivity.
Okay.
So can you talk about the illogical side of TI, even though it's supposed to be the most logical function? Like it's weird.
It is and it isn't, right? So I was actually thinking about this the other day. I asked myself the question. I was like, why do you like steak? And specifically medium rare steak with a specific rub cooked a certain way, right? And it sounds almost FI,
It does.
but right. And I'm like, okay, so what do I TI like this steak? And I like it because, well, it's cooked a certain way. It creates the tenderness in the beef. Like I had all these TI reasons why
Right.
this is the best type of steak. Like
Yeah,
that's gotta be FI, right? I'm like, no, FI just likes it because it likes it. There's no
exactly.
there's no reason behind it, right?
No, yeah, exactly.
So I've had to TI my FI, if that makes sense. And so you're right. It's a lot of backward. Like I put my reasons behind why I like something. I don't just like it because I like it. Um, and I can't think of a time that's gotten me into trouble other than to say I'm sure it has. And again, my wife being the TE, even though it's her demon, it's still in the middle, so it's relatively balanced. And so again, coming back to our house is a total mess because we're still renovating. I'll TI something. Oh, the vanity. So I've been working on the vanity in our bathroom. I'm like, well, I think it needs to be secured to the wall this way. And I think we need these screws. And I just go through the TI and she's like, no, just screw it into the wall. It'll be fine. Right. And sure enough, she was right again. And I just had to, but the TI wanted to put the steps of why it was right before I could do it. And she's just like, just get the screws, put it into the wall, and it'll be fine.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, that's probably not a good use of your time, because like there's other things in life that your attention should go to, right? Like your kids,
right.
like spending time with your kids, for example, like so. Yeah, so in that case, she is on point. The TI thing is a fickle one, because like you were talking about like the steak that you like medium rare, the right kind of rub and stuff, and like you're giving TI reasons why you like this kind of steak, but then like, why are those specific features? Why they why are they the superior features to make something why you would like them? It's like you can fall in this rabbit hole forever, right? Because it's like
Right.
you could
Yeah.
yeah.
And at some point, I just have to say, like, yeah, I've got a Fi in me somewhere, right? Like, we've got all the functions in us somewhere,
Yeah.
but I have to justify it. And I think that's it. I just have to justify it. If I don't justify it, then it can't be real or valid.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see that now with like the INTPs, especially. It's like you guys don't know what makes you happy. It's really fucked up. Like my buddy's an INTP, and we had to do one of my friend was getting married, and we had to do a bachelor party, and like he was resisting going to the bachelor party. I'm like, dude, you're being a dick. This is your friend, childhood friend that's getting married. Just fucking show up, like stop being a bitch and like come to the bachelor party. He's like, but I have to drive there. It's gonna take me 3 hours, and for what? Like 2 days, and then I have to take time off work. I'm like, dude, just ask your fucking boss to take time off. If you tell them it's a wedding, they'll be cool with it. It's not a big deal. He begrudgingly showed up, and when he showed up, he had more fun than everyone did. And I'm like, what the fuck? This guy doesn't even know what makes him happy. What is like for someone, TI is supposed to be the smartest type, and then they're so emotionally dumb. No offense, and I just get so frustrated, with you guys. I love INTPs. I have easy time talking to you guys, but when it comes to like the topic of happiness, like what the, you guys don't know what makes you happy, and I'm like,
No, it's so true. And I actually envy my wife. I envy all you ENFPs, INFPs especially, all the FPs, because you guys just intuitively kind of know what makes you happy. And I've told her that. I'm like, I envy you because you know what gives you enjoyment, you know what you like. And I'm sitting here like a dumbass trying to figure it out, processing it logically, getting nowhere. So
okay,
I totally relate to what you're saying with what you said about your friend.
okay, like with like ENFPs, for example, we have NEFI, so we can actually see other people's FIs, because we can gather your emotional patterns, right? Because the NE gathers your FI essentially. Even if you have TI, everyone has FI still, and
Right.
like what bugs me about INTPs is like I'll point it out to other INTPs what makes them happy, and then they'll be like, no, that's not true. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like I like I've seen your track record, your behavioral patterns, and it's clearly this that makes you happy. And like, how can you even reject that notion when you have a track record of this shit? Like, so how would you, like, I don't know if your wife ever pointed out to you what made you happy, and you're like, no, that's not true, and then you're like, has that ever happened to you, where like someone pointed out to you what like made you happy, and you
I've
notice
had,
that you were so happy when you're doing something, and then you're like, no, that's not true, you know?
I'm sure it has. It rings a bell. I'd have to ask her because I'm sure she would remember if she has. I know she's pointed out things like, well, you like to do this, so let's go do this. Or it's more situational, not so much like just general life things like, hey, you're tired today. Why don't you go lay down?
Yeah.
Because she also knows, like, uh, I'm even though I'm sleep first, man, I'll push myself pretty hard. Like even today, we're all feeling sick in the house, and I was like, oh, I gotta do this. I gotta at least be up for the kiddo, the 2-year-old. And she's like, no, just go lay down. Like, you need to rest. I'm doing okay. Like, go do this thing for yourself. And I think that's where she gets me most of the time. She's like, you need to go do this thing for yourself. Like, it's weird. I've got some friends from work, and we game once a month. Um, And I even feel guilty sometimes about saying, hey, I've got game night with the boys, you know. And so we chose once a month because that's not very often. And it's one Saturday. But I still feel guilty about it because I'm not there helping. And she's like, no, you need to go do this for you because you enjoy it. I'm like, yeah, but no, go do it. I got this.
Yeah.
And so she's been really, really good about that. And so I try to be respectful and do the same thing. It's like, you got girls' night, go hit your FI. I got the home. And she's much more willing to say, okay, bye, see ya,
No
thanks.
problem.
And I'm just like, can I really do this? Can I really do this for myself? You know what I mean?
So do you enjoy the game night with the guys?
Oh
Like,
yeah, I love it. Of course.
is it more for like the competition because you're TI, right? So TI people are like competitive, or like,
Um,
or not so
I
much?
think so. It's the TI competition. It's just, I think it hits the FE too in a good way
Right.
because I'm spending time with friends and it's just, I don't know, it's just fun to do that. I used to do sports a lot more when I was younger. You know, we'd go play basketball and stuff, and we were competitive and we talk crap to each other, and you know, sometimes it'd come to fists, but we always ended up enjoying it and loving it.
Yeah.
So, but if you ask me why I love it, I'd be like, I don't know.
So, I actually don't think that INTPs are as competitive as ISTPs. And
No, I
and,
think on average, you're right.
yeah, and I think it's because you don't have SE. So SE people are extremely competitive when it comes to who's faster, who's stronger, like the comparison of the physical sensory, or it could be with girls too. It's like who's prettier, right? Like with the SE, right?
Mhm.
Like, so the SI people, they don't care as much about that kind of stuff. But you still have TI, so you are competitive. So, and then but then there's also FE, which is just like you just want to connect with people because it's fun.
Sure.
So where does the SI come into play when it comes to like competition? Like, because you're not competitive in the physical realm. So where is the
So I would still say I'm competitive in the physical realm. It may not be to the same degree that an ISTP or an ESTP would be, but to say I'm not competitive there, I think would be false, because I definitely am. And internally, I'm constantly going like, am I bigger than him? Did I do that better than him? Did I have a better shot than him? You know, I think the difference is, I think intuitively the SC, when it comes to especially sports, physical sports, I think they just intuitively can move through their environment and work with their environment easier. Whereas I have to do it over, and I mean, not to say that they don't have to repeat and practice and all that stuff. I just think it comes more naturally to them. Whereas an SI has to work a little bit harder, because if I haven't done it 1,001 times the perfect way, I'm always going to get on myself. And so if that's the case, why bother doing it in the first place?
I think in general, SE people are better at sports. The only time an SI person would beat an SE person, I think, in sport is if it's like turn-based, instead of like real time. Like Tiger Woods is the best golfer and he's like an ISTJ, right? And because you're taking turns like hitting the ball. There's no like
Right.
you don't have to navigate anything. You just have to
Right.
practice your shot, right? Like so
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, you might be something there, but no, I agree. I think that SE, like I said, SE just intuitively navigates the physical environment more fluidly, just like I think any navigates the what would you say, the idea and the conceptual realm a little more fluidly, where the NI is trying to like to narrow it down, and so they miss stuff, or whereas the SI is trying to narrow it down and they might miss stuff too.
Right. All right, dude. I have two last questions for you. We'll wrap the interview.
Yeah.
The first one I have is on your audio kinesthetic. Can you talk about your being audio first, like learning through hearing and sound, and then kinesthetic? I can tell you, it's obviously you work out. You look like you work out. I think the kinesthetic part, I mean, you can talk about it too, but I think you kind of talked about it already. But I want to talk about the auditory side. So can you talk about like learning through sound and whatnot?
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier about listening to books rather than reading them, and my gosh, that is absolutely the case. Um, I have read books, but I noted I don't have dyslexia, but I do tend it's almost like a super mild form where I'll take words and letters and words, and my brain will move them around and create new words. And so like I'll be reading lines and then like I'll randomly see my own name and I'm like, wait, what? And so reading for me is just hard. Whereas when I'm listening, it just flows a lot easier. And so most of the books I've read have actually been listened to. I've listened to tons of books. I've read very few. Um, Same when, like if we're doing something around the house with construction, it's like, explain it to me first so I can hear it and then go show me so we can actually do the thing. And so, yeah, I will always, I will always learn first by hearing and then by doing or seeing. And then what's funny too, with the kinesthetic, I actually learn better when I'm moving. So if like a lot of people, they're bouncing their leg up and down like crazy, me and my brother both do it. If I can't move when I'm trying to learn something, it's really hard for me to retain the information. I can't explain why, I just know it. That's the fact. And so if I'm learning, if I'm reading, especially if I'm reading something like at a computer screen, my leg's going 1,000 miles an hour. Or I'll actually get up and read and walk around. Same with if I'm on a phone call and I'm just shooting the breeze with somebody, I'll actually get up and pace. And it's not because I'm nervous or anything. It's just because I need when we're exchanging ideas or thoughts or feelings, I need to move around. Now I can sit down on a couch and talk to you for 3 hours. I mean, I've been sitting in this chair for an hour and 20 minutes now. And I haven't been too, I mean, I've been doing this with my hands a lot, but yeah, I don't know why. I just know hearing and movement go hand in hand for me. And if I don't, I have a really hard, like then I'll start getting antsy, like if I can't move, especially at the computer. I have a desk job now at the pharmacy. And so after about 45 minutes to an hour of being at the computer, I'm up and I'm moving around, or else my brain is fried. Like I just need that movement for my brain to almost like reset and then I can sit back down and go on to the next thing. So.
Gotcha. Okay, I can relate to a lot of things that you've said. My last question for you is also in related to kinesthetic. So it's kind of weird because I interviewed someone before that was play last, yet he also couldn't sit still when he would be talking to people or doing work.
Yeah.
And I think it's kinesthetic related. I know Dave calls it high play, like people who are like wiggling all the time are like high play, but I also noticed that kinesthetic people are also wiggling all the time. So can you talk about your relationship with being low play, but still like you have to move and you have to do things, you have to expend energy. It's like a weird paradox almost. So can you talk about that weird paradox? You're trying to conserve your energy, right? But then when you're moving around all the time, you are expending energy. So
Yeah.
like, do you feel like you're leaking energy out when you're moving, or actually it's not, it doesn't feel that way? Like you feel like
It doesn't feel that way at all to me. It's funny. So Wendy and I, my wife, we went to visit Dave and Shan at their house, and they had another girl there. And she's an ESFJ. She was blast, play, consume, sleep. So she's sleep last. So she's got all of her extroverted animals up front, right? But she was the quietest of the whole group. And it was funny because being sleep first, I know it's funny online, there's a lot of the memes and stuff about sleep first on the Facebook page, how we're just kind of mopey, go to sleep, can't get out of bed. Being a sleep last, play, I love quiet time in the morning, but I got to be up, and I got to be up early, and I got to like get my day envisioned, because then I'm going to go hit the ground running. And if I don't expend that energy up front, then I get antsy, then I get nervous, then then I feel like I'm actually losing energy. It's in the expenditure of energy that I feel like I have the energy, generally speaking. Now, I'll qualify that by saying I still have to have slept process it first. So if I get up with no plan, I'm worthless for the day, right? My plan has got to be in place, and it can be as simple as today you're gonna, sweep the driveway and wash the car. It can be that simple, but if the sleep is processing is done for what I need to do, get out of my way because I got to go. I got to go expend energy. So no, I do not feel like I'm leaking energy by doing that. It's only when my plan is done that I'm like, okay, back to sleep.
Man, the sleep, blast, play, consume types are very fascinating because you guys can plan and then execute like relentlessly, and you get like a tidal wave like once every 10 years, so it's not that bad. I mean
Right.
it's supposed to be really bad, but I can't wrap my head around like what bad thing could possibly so happen that like you it would mess up your life being
I can actually answer that question
yeah, what is it then?
real quick. So where we lived before, so like I said, we moved back in March. We lived in a small little town up north of about an hour north. That's where I still work, actually. We lived there for almost 11 years. It was my dream to be in a house on some acreage in the country where it was quiet, where I could go out my back porch, shoot the gun, take a piss. No one cared. Like, that was my dream. Guess what? I got that. I got 2 acres out in the country. It was quiet. I could do all those things. It was great. The problem was I wasn't real, even though my wife was telling me, I wasn't taking in, consuming how much it was hard on her. She wanted the city. The town was too small. She hated how she didn't have the shopping and the restaurants and everything else she needed, she wanted. Um, and then the school system, because we were in a small town, was really hard on the kids too. And I kept putting it off, like, nah, it'll be fine next year, or it'll get better, it'll get better. I think had I not realized or been given that vocabulary about consume last, what that actually means and what that could actually do, I don't want to think about the blow up that could have happened when my wife finally would have said, I'm done, right? Because I was taking it. She finally did say, I'm done, but it was like, we need to move. And so I finally said, okay, we'll move. And we did. And it was fine, right? Like, I gave up my kind of dream scenario, but I'm actually really happy where we're at. The kids are in better schools. She's actually got a part-time job, which she loves because it gets her out of the house and away from everything, and she can feel like she's productive and make a little money. I can only guess at what not consuming that would have done, and then just kept on with my own Ti-Si plan for myself, right? Rather than thinking about my tribe.
I think the good thing with FE is like it doesn't really matter what you do as long as the tribe's happy, you're happy. So it's like
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's like the good perk about that, because like with FI, FI people are very particular at like what makes them happy.
Yeah.
You have to actually like get everything aligned. Like if the FI person wanted to live in that dream home of yours, they have to live there. They can't move anywhere else. But because you have FE, it's like, okay, you know what, tribe didn't like it. Okay, fine, we'll move it. I'm still good,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. So it's been like I said, it's been an eye opener. It took 11 years for that to happen. 11 years.
That's still a long time though.
It's still a long time, but like I said, I hate to think what would have happened if I would have just been stuck in my ways, not really been consuming that whole time what they were telling me, and just said, no, this is what we're doing. Like, that would have been a blow up.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that was also your fear, because when you were telling me that story, I was thinking to myself, man, the worst part of the whole story that you were telling me is like, how the hell do you sell your house? Because it's so big, it must take forever to sell it. Like,
And the funny thing is, we sold it in like 3 days.
oh really? Okay. Okay, that's crazy. All right. Um, all right, Nathan. Thanks for coming out and doing this interview.
Yeah.
It's been fun, and I think you're the second guy that I interviewed that's a sleep, blast, play, consume INTP, and so definitely good to see to hear your. No, there's not many of your specific type, so it's not like a common one. Like it's been like 2 years since I last interviewed someone of your specific type. So it's like that's how uncommon you
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
come. Yeah. Anyways, man, take care.
Yeah.
Get well soon, and we'll
If
stay in
we should
touch.
get together sometime. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't live too far, so if like
No,
things,
we're not.
if the border opens again, then
I
we can.
know the pass has been closed quite a bit lately.
Yeah. But if it opens up again, we can like get a bunch of people and like do like a OPS.
Yeah, it'd be fun. That'd be
Yeah.
fun.
All right, man.
All
Peace
right.
out.
Take it easy.